welcome to our masterclass on falling for judo. So this is a Live Longer Better in Hertfordshire masterclass that I'm particularly been looking forward to. We're very lucky to be joined with Professor Mike Callan and Karen Roberts, who's the Development Director at British Judo Association. So we've got some real expertise in the room, and we're going to be talking about using judo techniques to reduce the risk of injury and reduce the risk of falls in older adult population. It's quite pioneering, so we're very, very, very lucky to have them in Hertfordshire and delivering on webinars today. Just in terms of a little bit of webinar housekeeping, everyone, in terms of participants, you're all muted and your cameras are off. So don't worry, we can't see you, we can't hear you. We suggest that for the best viewing experience, if you select speaker view, which I believe is in your top right hand corner, and it just looks nice with the slides. In the chat, you can introduce yourselves. It'd be really nice to have some connections in today's events, because there's lots of people from different backgrounds in terms of judo clubs, older adult professionals, active partnerships. So please make yourselves known in the chat. And we do have the Q&A function, and there will be time for Q&A at the end of the webinar. I would recommend putting a question in there as soon as it comes into your mind, so that you don't lose that question. I'll be keeping an eye on the Q&A function, and at the end we can address those questions as a group. The webinar is being recorded, and we will be sharing the link to the recording to everyone who's registered, and we'll be hosting it on YouTube as well. And I know that the British Judo Association will share that with their network as well. So you can catch up or rewatch any of your bits of your favourite bits afterwards. We do have a survey popping up at the end of the webinar. If you can take a minute to fill that in, it would be most appreciated, so that we know what types of webinars are the most helpful for you and how we can make sure we do more helpful webinars. Now, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Professor Mike Callan, who is leading our webinar today.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Charlotte. Hi, everyone. Lots of familiar names in the room. So, yeah, welcome. And, yeah, particular thanks to Charlotte and the Heart Sports Partnership for hosting all of this technology stuff. So, I think they're doing an amazing job. So I'm going to have a go at using the technology and sharing my screen, and you never know, it might work. So I think that will be that screen there, and I can see a bit of the chat, so I'm going to move the chat over there. So hopefully that's working. If someone can nod at me, or has Charlotte muted you all? Charlotte, can you see that?
Yeah, that's working.
That's all working, is it? Okay, great stuff.
Thank you.
So I'll crack on. So yeah, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name's Mike, Professor Mike Callan. I work at the University of Hertfordshire, and this is a webinar about falling for judo, based on some of the work that myself and my colleagues have been doing. So let's see if this whole thing works. Perfect. Good. Okay. So I'm going to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. I'm going to talk about some of the mechanics, some of the science behind the safer falling for older adults using judo. Give you a bit of an overview of the international conference that we ran in Japan just before Christmas. Talk to you a bit about the sessions that are going on at the University of Hertfordshire. We couldn't get hold of the video of a session in practice, so I've got half a dozen photos to show you, and you can pretend that they're moving photos. So I'll go on into the introduction. So this is me. As I said, a lot of people in the call I do know personally, but many people won't know my background. I am the president of the International Association of Judo Researchers. I'm a scientific committee member of the International Judo Federation and a scientific commissioner for the European Judo Union. And I'm also education director for Commonwealth Judo. So I have a too many years background within judo, and in the last 5 years I've been really trying to focus on how we can use judo to impact on society and on communities. And I think that teaching ukemi to older adults is an amazing way that judo can make a difference. So Charlotte's asked me to talk a little bit about the science behind it, because you know, as we kind of move forward with this, people don't believe you unless you can show them some of the science. So I decided to look into that a little bit more, so that we can evidence why this works. So just a smattering of evidence from some of the literature. National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, there's a quote from them that intervention programs of muscle strengthening and balance training are likely to be beneficial. But that's no different to lots of the so-called fall prevention programs that you would see, or strength and balance programs that you would see. So judo is not differentiated as far as being beneficial as muscle and strength and balance training. And also Age UK data suggests that any exercise program will reduce the risk of falling between 35 and 54%. So judo programs are no different to that. However, there is some evidence that practicing judo in pre and postmenopausal women will reduce bone mineral density. So in other words, make the bones less brittle. And then Simone in Italy found that coaches should consider introducing judo falls techniques to prevent fall-related injuries, especially in the older population. There's other data that I think probably Caccioni's as well. Fall training may be useful to prevent hip fractures. And Groen suggested back in 2010 that after fall training, fear of falling was reduced by 0.88 on a visual analog scale. So in a lot of my work, I decided to focus around fear of falling and kind of build on that. But if we move on and looking at the definition of a fall, so this is Kosei and Justin demonstrating Kazushi. So a fall is a biomechanical event where an external force, gravity, destabilizes the body's alignment of the torso over the legs. And a similar definition, a fall occurs when the center of gravity of the trunk moves outside the base of support provided by the feet against the floor. Yeah, so if you look at this image of Justin being unbalanced, and you drew a line down from the knot on his belt, the black belt there, you'd see that center of mass is falling outside the front of his toes. Another definition by Masood and Morris define a fall as a fall results when the vertical line which passes through the center of the mass of the human body comes to lie beyond the support base, and correction does not take place in time. So we've got a little diagram there where the center of mass, normally, if you drop to plumb line down, normally it sits within your base, or between your feet. And then when you get unstable, that plumb line comes outside your base, then you're off balance. It's not complicated. But within judo, actually, when you take somebody's center of mass outside of their base, well, we call that kazushi. There's a Japanese word for that, and kazushi is the first phase within a throwing technique. So it's immediately obvious that judoka who know how to create kazushi, know how to create breaking balance, are actually playing with the definition of a fall. And we know that falls are a huge social problem, particularly with older adults. So when people fall, the first thing that judo coaches do is they teach them how to fall safely. And actually the Kodokan, which is the original judo club, it has its base in Tokyo, in the Bunkyo area. They define very clearly 4 kinds of ways to fall. And the Japanese word for falling techniques is ukemi, which means process of receiving. So receiving the technique. ukemi. So the Kodokan identify Yoko Kemi, which means side break fall, Ashiro Kemi, which means rear break fall, Mayu Kemi front break fall, and Mayu Kemi is rolling break fall. So there are 4 very clearly defined technical ways to fall within judo, and you'll see that the falling techniques that we're doing in the classes essentially is just teaching those 4 techniques in different creative ways. So I wanted to understand a bit more about pressure. So pressure is measured in pascals. That's the SI unit of pressure. And I tried to imagine in my head, like, what is a pascal? I have no idea what a pascal is before. So it turns out that 1 kilo of mass, when it's acted upon by gravity, acceleration due to gravity, it creates 9.8 newtons of force. So you've got a kilo of mass, and it's got 9.8 newtons of force when gravity is acting on it. And 1 newton per square meter is the definition of a pascal. So in my simple mind, a square meter to me is a 1x1 judo mat, and a kilo of mass is a bag of sugar. So if I put a bag of sugar on a 1x1 mat area, that is equal to 1 pascal of pressure. And that's the way that I kind of visualize it in my head. And we know that an elephant, which weighs 3,000 kilos or 3 tons, if you divide the 3 tons spread across the surface area of their feet, multiply that by 4. So an elephant exerts 125,000 pascals of pressure under each foot. But a 60-kilo woman wearing only the 2 stilettos, and then with a much smaller surface area, exerts actually 3,000 pascals of pressure under each heel. So 3 million pascals under a stiletto and only 125,000 under an elephant's foot. So the key thing there is that although the woman is lighter than the elephant, because the stiletto has a smaller surface area, the pressure under the stiletto is much greater. And that's one of the, let's call it, scientific aspects related to how we teach ukemi. One of the reasons that ukemi works is because we land with a larger surface area than if we were just going to land on our wrist, for example. So often people, when people fall, they put their hand out to try and stop themselves falling, and that is a learned reflex from adults. It's called the upper limb falling reflex, and there's a diagram of somebody trying to measure that scientifically using force plates. So normally people land on the proximal part of their hand, so the lower part of their hand, around their thumb and their wrist area. So if we look at the science behind a 60-kilo person landing on the proximal area of their hand, and I use 60 kilos because that's close to the average weight of an older woman, and women live longer than men, and so if you take the average weight of an older woman, it's a good sort of figure to start with in terms of the maths. So a 60-kilo person falling on a proximal area of one hand generates 277,000 pascals of pressure onto that wrist. And I had no feeling for what on earth that actually means. Like, what is 277,000 kilopascals? That feels like 277,000 bags of sugar on a mat area. So I tried to look up what else generates a similar amount of pressure. And if you swing a sledgehammer, you generate 240,000 pascals swinging a sledgehammer. So actually, when Auntie Doris falls over, on each wrist is a greater pressure than if you were to ask Doris to hold her arm up for you, and then you were to swing a sledgehammer at her wrist. So it's no wonder that people break their wrist when they fall using the upper limb falling reflex. And so part of what we're trying to do in the sessions is actually to unlearn that reflex and teach people that when they land, they don't put their arm out. And that's something that we would teach beginners in judo all the time. You know, if you're going to get thrown, don't put your arm out because you're going to break your arm or break your wrist. But we have to, with older adults who've spent a lifetime being scared of the floor and putting their arm out, we have to unlearn that over quite a long period of time. But actually, if you do put your arm out, it's the same amount of pressure or more pressure than if you were to swing a sledgehammer at yourself. So then let's look at the surface area. So if we use Yoko Kemi, and the last diagram there shows the finished position of Yoko Kemi, so lying on your side with your arm out and your palm down. And we think about the surface area. So the surface area of an average woman is 1.6 square meters. And we reckon, based on force pressure mat type technology, that when we land on the ground in Yoko Kemi, we're contacting the ground with about 14% of our body surface area, which, when you do the maths, is about a fifth of a square meter. So 0.22 of a square meter is contacting the ground. And if you've got a mass of 61 kilos, which is actually the average mass of an older lady, that, when you apply gravity to it, that's just under 600 newtons, which equates to under 3 kilopascals, so under 3,000 pascals. So if we compare those two, the pressure on your hand from using the falling reflex, in other words, putting your arm out to stop you falling over, that's 277,000 pascals. But if you land in a side break fall, it's less than 3 kilopascals. So in other words, a factor of 100 times smaller pressure landing in a side break fall compared to if you decided to put your arm out to stop you falling. So it's no wonder that judo falling techniques or break falls, it's no wonder they work, because they reduce the pressure under the fall by about 100 times. So as I said, I'm interested in fear of falling, and so there's this fear of falling cycle. So basically what happens is somebody falls over and then they're scared of falling again. So because of that, they don't move about as much. If they're scared of falling, you sit down a little bit more, and that means that you decrease your muscle strength. And when you've got decreased muscle strength, you get an imbalanced gait. Gait is when you're walking along. So your walking becomes imbalanced because of your less muscle strength. But because you've got an imbalanced gait, you actually increase your risk of falling, and so you fall again. So because you're scared of falling, you're more likely to fall again. So there's older people fear falling. Fear of falling leads to avoidance of activity, loss of muscle strength, compromises balance, increases the likelihood of falling. And of course, that means that if you're scared of falling, it contributes to depression, isolation, loneliness. You're less likely to go and take part in social activities, less likely to walk to the village hall and do the yoga class or whatever it is. And that's going to have a negative impact on your mental health and well-being. And there's a clear evidence. There's some Korean data, for example, from 2015, which shows that if you reduce fear of falling, you reduce the numbers of falls. And I'll show you some data we've got from our sessions related to that a little bit in a few minutes. So the next part of this talk is discussing the International Consensus Conference that we ran. So it grew from a research visit in August 2022. So this is myself and my colleagues, Janine, Lucy and Kat. We're in Mr. Yamashita's office, and he is the president of the Japan Olympic Committee. And for those on the call that are not judoka, Mr. Yamashita is one of the most famous judo players in history, and he was the Olympic champion. So we received some support for that research visit from the Great Britain Sasakawa Foundation, and a lot of support during the trip from the Judo Solidarity non-profit organization. We went over to meet the author of this book. This book is called Yuara-chan Taiso, and its author, Professor Kamitani, has been delivering some sessions for older adults in the Kodokan, the judo club in Tokyo. He's been doing that for about 8 years. And so we went over to discuss the ideas with him during that visit. While we were meeting with Mr. Yamashita, we talked about this document from the World Health Organization, which is strategies for preventing and managing falls across the life course. So you've got the World Health Organization, who presumably know about health in the world, and they've given us a document about strategies for managing falls across the life course. And that document does not mention the word judo once. If you look at the PDF version, you can search it for the word judo. It is omitted. So Mr. Yamashita set us a challenge to raise awareness with the World Health Organization about the value of judo in terms of falls. If you want to learn how to fall, why wouldn't you look at judo? Because that teaches people how to fall all the time. So our challenge from Mr. Yamashita is to change the World Health Organization policy document. So that's what we've set about to do. And as part of that, we decided to organize a international consensus conference. So this was the logo that we created for it. It was a University of Hertfordshire organized conference. And we hosted it at Tokai University in partnership with the International Judo Federation Academy. And we had great support in the organization and sponsorship by Judo Solidarity and judospace.com. And we also had some sponsor support from the Defire brand, which is a judogi brand in Japan. So we hosted it there on the Tokai campus, which on a good day you can see Mount Fuji. And these were the nations that attended. So we had, I think, 14 nations in attendance. And basically we tried to collect together all of the safe fall projects through judo that are going on around the world. So this was the group photo. And we have colleagues there from Japan, from Australia, from Sweden. I'm just kind of glancing around from Spain, from Azerbaijan, from Slovenia, from Canada, from Belgium, and even I know there's some Scots in this call, so I'll say that we even had some Scots in the room. So that was the consensus conference. We had meetings in the lecture room where we shared our PowerPoints in terms of our ideas about it, but a large part of the conference was on the mat where we shared our ideas practically. And in that photo, I think there's just the 3 world champions in terms of Kosei Nui, Hitoshi Sugai, and Mr. Dr. Professor Moriwaki. So we had 41 delegates attend the International Consensus Conference from 14 national judo federations, actually 14 universities. 6 attendees were full professors and 3 were world champions. And you can see there that there is a list there of all the different projects around the world that attended. So there's the Judo for Balance project from Sweden, the Dynamic Balance for Life project from Australia. There's the Yuara-chan Taiso group from the All Japan Judo Federation, the Fall Prevention program from Canada, the Finding Your Feet program from Great Britain, the Safe Falls Azerbaijan project, Carefree Falling for the Elderly, that's in Belgium, The Judo Kenko Taiso is also in Japan. The Educating Judo Coaches for Older Practitioners, they're a European project based across Croatia, Slovenia, Italy, and other nations. Then there's the Adapted Utilitarian Judo Project in Spain and the Zeka Bewegen Fall Prevention Project in the Netherlands. So basically, we put all of these judo-related falls projects together in the same room to share ideas. So after the conference, we made a page on the judospace.com website. So you can just go to judospace.com/safefalls, safe-falls. And Katie has made a page showing some of the images with that list of projects and the hyperlinks from around the world. So if you want to see the videos from Benoit in Canada, for example, you can just go to Safe Falls website and click on the link and see Benoit's videos. So we have the Safe Falls page on judospace.com. It's got all the lectures from the conference, and it's got a copy of the conference proceedings where we made a PDF with everybody's abstract and what they were talking about. So if you want to see some of the evidence from across the planet, then you're welcome to download the proceedings document and have a look. So our idea is to create a consensus statement. So this is an image from the conference, and you have there at the front of the image is Rustam Orijov. He's an Olympic silver medalist from Azerbaijan. Myself, Jim Feenan, vice president of Judo Scotland, who I believe is on this call, and then you have Professor Moriwaki and Professor Nakajima, who are alumni from Kukushkan University. So our plan is to complete the expert consensus statement on judo falling techniques for older adults, and we're midway through agreeing that statement. Well, we agreed it in Japan. We're midway through finishing the write-up, and we will publish that in the Arts and Sciences of Judo, which is an academic journal run by the International Judo Federation Academy. So there will be an official consensus statement published by the International Judo Federation Academy, which defines the content of judo falling techniques for older adults as defined by the experts, 41 experts from 14 nations. So a little bit about the project we've been running at the University of Hertfordshire. So we decided to adopt Yuara-chan Taiso, which is the Japanese system that Professor Kamitani developed and is published in this book. And we decided to do it with a group of older adults, and that's myself and Lucy, my former assistant coach. We sourced our participants through the University of the Third Age, and we received support to run the initiative from the Hearts Sport and Physical Activity Partnership. So we had 7 participants that completed. It was a very short pilot because we wanted to do it before we went on our first visit to Japan. We wanted to get some data to take to Japan. So we had 7 participants, mean age of 76.4, and we offered 4 sessions August 2022, and because one of those crazy hot days, the mean number of attendances was 3.14. So basically 7 people attended 3 times with an average age of 76. And then we had a look at their fear of falling before they started, so at the beginning of the first session, and you can see there seems to be some correlation between fear of falling and age. That's not surprising, that when you're in your 80s you're more scared of falling than you are when you're in your early 70s. This is some images of the exercises that we were doing, so some photos of Lucy demonstrating the various exercises that are in the Yuara-chan Taiso curriculum. And this is the fear of falling questionnaire that we chose to use. There are lots of fear of falling questionnaires, falls efficacy, for example, but some of them are really long questionnaires, and some of the participants got really bored doing the long questionnaires, and sometimes they completed them incorrectly, where they swapped the scale. So we decided to focus on using this revised FFQ from Bauer's work in 2015, because it's a very simple 6-point questionnaire, and there are 4 possible answers for 6 questions, so 24 boxes possible. So that's our preferred data collection method. And what we found was that beforehand, their fear of falling was 18.71 using Bauer's FFQ revised, fear of falling questionnaire revised. And after 3 sessions, we reduced the fear of falling to 15.71, which is actually 16% reduction, and is statistically significant. So that gave us great hope, and we've been running a longer, larger project since then. We haven't published this data, but with the 9-week program, the data we have out of that, which is not peer reviewed, but it shows us a 27% reduction over 9 weeks. So we can reduce fear of falling by about a quarter over a 9-week period. And obviously we need to publish that and get it peer reviewed to make sure that it's okay. So that's the kind of impact you can have on fear of falling by teaching these techniques over a very short period of time. Our coaching methodology is based on what we call micro progressions. So if your coach is on the call and you're thinking of having a go at this, my biggest tip is make sure that you break the teaching of the technique down into tiny steps. So this is a table from a paper that I presented, where I've broken down Maimo Kemi down into 14 steps. So you teach step 1, basically get your group to lie on their back in the right position for Yoko Kemi, and then you build up stage by stage 14 micro progressions until they're actually doing a rolling breakfall. So you can have a look at that and adapt it according to your coaching style, and adapt it according to the possibilities that are available within your group. If you've got a more competent group, you might move a little bit faster. If you've got a less confident group, you might move slower. So the key point here is that take very small steps in your coaching, and try to develop competence at each step, because in my experience, if you develop competence in each step, then you develop the confidence of your participants, and they're confident that they can then move on to the next stage. So, you know, if it takes you 6 weeks to get to stage 9 in a progression towards learning a rolling breakfall, then that's fine. Just take it steady. So we did publish the results of our shorter pilot. It's in the Arts and Sciences of Judo, which you can find on the International Judo Federation Academy site. If you just go IJF Academy, look on their tabs for journal, and it's in volume 2, number 2. So this is the abstract, and our paper was called Judo as a Way to Reduce Fear of Falling in Older Adults, Yuara-chan Taiso. Yuara-chan is a cartoon character from the 1980s, based on a judo player known as Ryoko Tani, and she was a small woman, a very successful judo player. Taiso just means body exercises in Japanese, so it's the body exercises of Yuara-chan, which is a cartoon character. So we've taken that, I'm working with Karen and with the British Judo Association team we developed a coach education program. So you can see here the handbook we built, the PowerPoint opening slide, and then Karen also produced a certificate for participants on that program. So we've taken our experience, turned it into a coach education course, which lasts 3 or 4 hours, and is a revalidation course for British Judo. So we are going to run. We tried it out with some of the BJA coach educators back in last year in Warsaw, and on the 20th of February this year at the Heart Sports Village. You can find the details on the BJA calendar of events. You can register for the BJA coach education course on how to do this. So if you come to the one on the 20th of February, I'm leading that, and I'll try and work with those coaches that attend and help them to get a little bit more confident in terms of how they might engage with older adults in their areas. So some images of a session in practice. So this is where we teach in the Heart Sports Village. We get the staff to pull the curtain around the mat just to give us a little bit more privacy. It's probably a nicer idea for the participants, because especially in the early sessions they're pretty nervous. We do a lot of partner work similar to judo. So initially we just start off alone with breakfalls, but very quickly we get them to pair up and support each other. The main image in the middle is Katie, my assistant, and she spends a lot of time talking to the older adults and building their confidence and helping them on a one-to-one basis. So if you're going to do this as a coach, my advice is try and find yourself an uke, try and find yourself an assistant coach who can help you out in a session, because also it's difficult to find an uke from within the participant group. So make sure you've got an assistant, and you can see here at the end here one of the participants just demonstrating some leg swinging exercises. It's the kind of thing that you might use as a build up to a chimata, or as part of an exercise to learn some ashiwaza. And then we do that where we get them to change their hands and not hold on to the shoulders. So somebody's doing leg swinging freely using their own balance. So we kind of build up to that. Another couple of images. These 3 ladies are doing Ashiro Kemi, and then there's another image there of some more leg swinging and so on. So we do a wide range of exercises. To be honest, we start on the ground for about 4 weeks before we build up confidence to standing, because most people are scared of the ground, and that's why they've got a fear of falling. So getting people familiar with the ground is a good idea in the early sessions. So there's this quote from an academic paper published in 2017 where they say that the burden of falls is substantial, and there'll be a lot of falls professionals on this call who will be able to vouch for that. And James and colleagues go on to suggest that investing in further research, fall prevention strategy, and access to care is critical, and I can only agree with that. And then if we see a quote from Jigoro Kano, the founder of Judo, he tells us that the final aim of judo practice and study is to make ourselves perfect and work for the benefit of society. So I think it's really important that as judo coaches, we work for the benefit of society, and investing in further research and fall prevention strategies is one way that we can impact on society and achieve the final aim of judo. So in summary, I talked about the mechanics behind all of this stuff. I talked to you about the international conference, the provision going on in Hearts, and there wasn't any good video. Sorry about that, but I'm sure I made the images come to life. So there's a sample of some of the references, but if you wanted some more references, again, there's a link to all of the scientific research on our Safe Falls website. So happy to take questions, but maybe it's best to hold the questions until we've heard from Karen. So next up will be Karen Roberts, former World Junior Champion, and she is now the development director for British Judo, and really making a seismic change in the approach of British Judo to a wide range of different user groups, including older adults. So I'm going to stop there. If you've got questions afterwards and you want to contact me, there's my email address. Just take a screenshot and drop me a line. That'd be fine. But otherwise, I'm happy to stop sharing and to hand back to Karen.
Thanks, Mike.
Perfect. And thanks very much, everyone.
And thanks for the intro. Same thing, Mike. Could you give me a thumbs up if you can see that on the screen?
Yeah. Okay. Now you're full screen on it. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So you saw this picture a few times through Mike's presentation there, but I thought I'd just put it up again. I wasn't going to share slides, so I've probably surprised Mike and Charlotte, but I thought it'd be worth doing this. Yeah, Mike's research and Kat's research has been fantastic, and it was Mike that introduced British Judo to what was going on across the world with this particular area. So last year we came together and we started to think about what the barriers can be, and the barriers often that we don't have the coaching workforce to be able to help with these kind of initiatives. So the first point of call was to develop the coaching course. I was fortunate enough, along with, I think, Nick Shepherd's on this webinar too, colleague Nick and colleagues Lawrence Kenyon as well, to do that course with Mike back in April. And it was very open and honest. People were worried about coaching an older population, and the course itself that we've developed was very much about building that confidence in the coaches to understand this is just judo. And I'm really pleased that Mike called out that point around micro progressions. Often when we're coaching, we're trying to find the fastest way to get from A to B. And actually what we found when we went through the session back in April was actually this was about almost the slowest way, really taking it down and slowly progressing what we know to be judo. I'm very pleased to say that we have got the resources now to support this. Our intention now is that the February the 20th will be the first of a series of courses to be rolled out. John, I think you put in the chat to ask about are there any other dates? These are the dates, and they are hot off the press, finalised on Friday, that will be coming up. We will email these out to you, and we think sign up will be live at some point next week. So these are going live to the coaches. For those active partners on the call, the point of doing this piece of work first is to make sure that we can then connect with you and say where the coaches are available to follow up with any programs that you would like to deliver within your own regions. We can send those dates to you too, so you can be aware and you can come along and see the program in itself for the coaches. But equally, my colleagues that I've already mentioned, Lawrence and Nick, who are on the call, and also Maddie, they're our club support officers. So they're going to be your key contacts. We've been able to link you up to coaches and clubs that will be available to signpost the audiences to. I think they were the main things that I wanted to say from a British Judo perspective. I think for a long time we've focused on a very small group of people, and the mission for British Judo is to increase the impact of judo on British society, and this is definitely a way that we can support some of those problems that we see out in society through judo. So the whole point of this, and the point of British Judo's involvement, is to increase the coaching workforce that can support that initiative, and really keen that the first course being launched by the person that's actually helped us to develop the course is going to be seen at the Hertfordshire Sports Village on the 20th of February.
Thanks so much, Karen. So I'll share my slides, and it's very slight repetition, but hopefully maybe a QR code is useful for those of you who are very eager and they want to sign up for the 20th of Feb. So as Karen's mentioned, this is the accredited judo coaching, is CPD course. Currently it's available for judo coaches only, so already qualified and practicing judo coaches. However, if there's interest, we can start to explore whether we're able to develop and adapt the programme for other exercise professionals. So please, if you are interested in that, do get in touch with us, because that's something that we can only do when we know that there's the desire there. So perhaps if you are a strength and balance class teacher, or you work with older adults already, and this is something that you might want to bolt on, please do get in touch, and we can see in the future what we can do around that. You've heard what's included within the Finding Your Feet programme. This is my layman's term, so I'm so sorry if I've not described it correctly, but it's a syllabus of movements and exercises to combat the fear of falling and injury from falls. So you can see the different types of movements that we've seen in this webinar. So the first of its kind globally, and the launch of the CPD programme will be on the 20th of Feb, 3 p.m. I know there was a question in the chat about what time. It's £65 to attend, and that includes the accreditation costs. So everything will be sorted from that side of things, and we'll be very lucky to be led by Mike, who's on the call at the moment. So those other dates of the other sessions, we'll make sure we include those, a link to those on the email that we send out after the webinar, because I know there's people from all around. I did see a question in the chat about, can I come from abroad? Absolutely you can. We would love to have you, because, as I say, this is the first globally. So this is the first chance you have at doing this. So definitely, please come over and see us. So you can scan this QR code and it will take you to the Eventbrite where you can sign up. And just to let you know that the coach education programme on the 20th of Feb is part of Heart Sports Partnership's wider Coach Education Week, which is something that we do annually. And there's a range of different coach education sessions available, from judo sessions to pickleball to dodgeball. There's safeguarding, there's mental health, there is strength and balance, and there'll definitely be a nod to judo in that one. There's dementia friends sessions as well. So if you wanted to have any other coach education, then keep your eye out on the Coach Education Week. And I wanted to kind of I wanted to share how you might be able to get this up and running in your area. So hopefully this would have been really inspiring, and now you're all burning and ready to go. How do you actually get it into practice? So Live Longer Better in Hertfordshire, we have a bid writing service. So we have partnered with Funding for Sport to produce a number of funding applications. So that means that you can have a professionally written bid at no cost to yourself, because we've already paid for it. Now, the Live Longer Better in Hertfordshire bids will be targeting improved use of physical activity for older adults in particular, across Hertfordshire specifically. And that's not to say you can't use funding for sport outside of those realms, but the Live Longer Better in Hertfordshire particular service is for older adults in Hertfordshire. There's a range of eligible organisations, but some of the key ones that might relate to most people on this call are voluntary and community organisations, a constituted group or club. So judo clubs are eligible. Schools are eligible. Not-for-profit companies such as CICs are available, but are eligible. And there's plenty more as well. So you can have a look on our website, and this QR code will take you to our funding page on the website. So just to put it into perspective, we tend to apply to either the National Lottery or Sport England. And from the National Lottery, that goes up to £20,000. And from Sport England, that goes up to £15,000 for projects supporting IMD deciles 1 to 3. And what that means is areas of indices of multiple deprivation. So they're areas where there is deprivation. So 1 to 3 is the most deprived areas. I didn't really say that very eloquently, did I? But hopefully you understand what I mean. And in terms of the bid, you can use that bid to cover staffing, cover the training, the equipment, transport, marketing, much more. If you want to get videos of your program, then you can include that in the bid. But if you wanted to have a chat about it, you can just register your interest on the form on our website. That email will come through to me, and then I'll get in touch with you and we can talk about it, and we can bring Karen and Mike into the conversation if that would be helpful. So this is a really big opportunity for us to be able to expand Finding Your Feet as a programme and offer it to more people in Hertfordshire. If you are further afield than Hertfordshire, Funding for Sport can definitely support you still, and he can include the cost of his bid writing service within the bid, so it's kind of then a no win, no fee option. We've worked with Richard for many years now, and since Live Longer Better started in 2021, we've had 32 successful bids, and out of 34, and they come to a value of about £270,000 that have gone directly to the community. So I highly recommend Funding for Sport if you were looking for a professional bid writer. And I've not been paid to say that. So I've popped some contact details on the slide. I know that we've shared Mike's already, and you're welcome to get in touch with us and with any questions following the webinar. But now is the perfect time for the Q&A, and I can see that there have been a few questions that have come along. So I will stop sharing my slides and then ask the questions, open it up to Mike and Karen. I'll stop sharing now.
Do you have to do anything technically to unmute people so they can ask stuff or anything like that?
We can allow people to talk. I'm happy, I can do that. I'm happy to read out the questions as well, and then if people wanted to chip in, I think there's a way you can raise your hand as well. So if people were to raise their hand, then that's quite an easy way for me to then be able to unmute you. I will go to the first question that we had, which was back at the beginning when you were going through the mechanics, Mike. Jordan asked, for the calculation of forces when landing in Yoko Ukemi, does it assume the whole body impacts at once? And does the pressure increase if performed as commonly done, where the hips contact the mat before the upper body?
Yeah, so the pressure is about the first point of contact. So, you know, if you're gonna just land on your finger first before anything else, you're gonna break your finger, because that's the pressure of point of contact. So the key point is to make the first point of contact as large a surface area as possible, which is why when we do, for example, Oshiro Kemi, which is back break fall, the whole of our back and the length of our two arms is the first point of contact, so shall we say.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. And so if somebody was to land on their hip first, lots of professionals would call that a hip fracture, and then there's goodness knows how long in hospital, and it's not a good idea.
No, there's a lot of negative outcomes associated with that. Like 1 in 5 people who've suffered a hip fracture will pass away within the year. It increases mortality rate immensely.
Incredible.
So we have another question from Claire, and Claire has asked, in general, how accessible is judo or judo clubs for adults looking to reduce their risk of falls before they count as an older adult at risk of falls? So these are adults that aren't young but are wanting to compete. How accessible are judo clubs?
It's one for Karen, I think.
Yeah, very accessible. I mean, we've got a lot of coaches on this this call now that would just be saying to you, come along. I've recently just gone out to all of the London clubs because we've got a search engine that wants to be used, and asked to put the age on, and all of them have said 5 to 99. So judo clubs are and judo was designed as an education system for all. So judo clubs are welcoming everyone through the door. In terms of competition, if the question was about competition, we have a veterans series, and actually that's led by our international federation now, goes right through to Europe and then comes down to a domestic setting. And the way that our grading is set up, there's a way that we can be kind of finding our own measure of success, which is just through our own grading syllabus. So you can work through the grading syllabus if you're not interested in competing and you just want to find another way to measure how you're progressing. And alternatively, you don't have to worry about either of those things. You can just get on the judo mat and enjoy learning judo.
Thank you, Karen. And you made me think then, it's talking about the competing side of it. And Mike, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. But when we were at the international conference, you remember Australia was saying how, well, we had the visitor from Australia who came along, and she managed to get a medal at a competition. And now my memory's a bit foggy, but was she like one of the first in her category to win a medal?
Yeah, so the Dynamic Balance for Life group in Australia, led by Mira and Michael, their group, they've been running quite a while, and so for their advanced older adults group, they asked if they could wear judo suits and start actually studying some other aspects. So Mira and Michael have been doing some kata with that group, and one of the people who originally accessed it as a full session, I understand that she won a medal in a kata event in Australia.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I loved that story because it made them they enjoyed doing the classes so much that they just really wanted to get to the heart of judo. They just fell in love with judo. So yeah, thank you.
And for those who are not judoka on the call, so kata is a form of judo which is very popular, but it's not how you would perceive competition. Let's say if you think of competitive judo, you're probably thinking of people fighting and rolling about in their pajamas, but with kata, it's much more formal exercises, and much safer. Not that judo's not safe, but kata's much more kind of controlled and managed, and I've got colleagues who can explain kata a million times better than me.
Thank you, Mike. Did you want to come in, Karen?
No, because I'm definitely no better qualified to explain kata. Everyone would be actually appalled when they see me do mine. No, it was just there was like a cluster of questions that were coming in across on the chat rather than the Q&A, very much around kind of risk assessment and nuances in coaching, and I think there's a cluster, and I want to say, because when Mike went through his presentation, he explained the micro progressions, and actually as a coach, this is kind of how you need to be thinking. I would say that when you attend the coach development course, that's what we talk about. That's what's been developed in there. So within the resources that we share, it's the same way as if you had any new person walk into your judo club. You assess what their capabilities are, and you do your physical activity readiness questionnaires with them. That's part of the course, and it would be exactly the same approach. Actually, the coaches that we ran through, and Mike will kind of probably be able to say more about this, the questions that we had was almost frozen because it wasn't necessarily a general population that they were used to coaching. However, when we brought them back to going, okay, what is coaching? Oh yeah, we think about the audience in front of us and we adapt whatever we're going to deliver according to the audience in front of us. It's pretty much as simple as that. There's no kind of huge miraculous answer to this. It's about taking our judo techniques and understanding how we apply them to the audience. So in the same way, I think there was a question around maybe somebody with a sight issue, the same way that we do with our adaptive judo and vision impaired judo, we assess the person in front of us and we adapt the session accordingly. I think there were a few questions around that. So I just wanted to kind of say, on the course that we've developed, those questions are answered, and they became actually the frequently asked questions section almost of the resource.
Thank you, Karen. So looking at that chat, Vinicius has asked, is the recording going to be available somewhere? Yes, it will be, and we'll upload it to YouTube, and we will share the links with everyone who's registered to have that there. And also, you've asked whether there will be any proof that we held this webinar today. I am not quite sure exactly what you're after, but I'm more than happy to email you with the evidence of the attendee report if that was what you were wanting, or whether the recording is sufficient. So feel free to get in touch with me separately about proof of attendance. And John has asked, how much do people charge per person per session? So I suppose that is directed more towards when we deliver a session to the community. Mike, do you want to talk about a little bit how we've done it in Hertfordshire?
Yeah, so that's from John, is it? So yeah, hi John. My view was that I didn't really want the older adults to be paying directly themselves, so I didn't want it to be a cost to the receiver of the coaching. And I took the view that there's a lot of funding support to try and make a difference to this issue within society. So I kind of figured it must be possible to find someone else who's willing to pay to make sure that these people don't fall over. And with Charlotte's help, we managed to receive grant aid, which covered all of the costs in terms of the venue hire, the coaching fees, the marketing costs, and the transport for the coaches to get to and from the session. So in that way, we received a grant, and that grant was enough to pay for sessions through the whole year. And we're working with Charlotte to renew some of that funding so that we can keep going with that. If you were going to charge the client directly, you could do that, and that would depend on the social dynamics of your area and what your costs might be. But I think I'd be amazed if with a little tiny bit of work and a bit of support, you couldn't find yourself a grant. And I really see this as a way of bringing additional funding into judo clubs, and running one session a week for this audience. You could receive funding directly for that, and then the judo club can choose how to use that funding when it's received. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, I totally agree. And because Live Longer Better, we support a range of different activities. Generally, we find that the heavily subsidised classes and the free ones do the best. So if that's of any help, and I'm more than happy to connect.
Sorry, Charlotte, just related to that, at the moment, most judo clubs, if they're going to get any grant aid, let's say, they focus on the sport bit of the government, let's say, and they focus in the UK at Sport England, or overseas might be Olympic Committee funding or something. But this is a way that judo clubs can access, let's say, the health budgets, because the funding to support older people with falls is usually coming in through the health minister or the health budgets or something like that. So it opens up a whole new funding stream for judo, and that's also something that really excites me. Yeah.
Absolutely. We have a question from Adam about is there a way that Mike's presentation around the evidence base can be shared, or as a 10-minute presentation? So my initial thoughts is I could clip what we've already done and I could share that with you, Mike, and see if that's what you want to share.
Download the YouTube video, Adam, and play it at double speed. That'll work. That'll get it down to 10 minutes.
Good shout. Yeah. Jane has said they have adults up to 76 in their club, which is fantastic. Okay, and then there's a couple more questions in the Q&A. Are there any courses planned for Northern Ireland, Karen?
Yeah, actually there is. We're working with Russell, who was actually over in the initial tutor group, to organise a course. We just don't have that date or location yet, but we are planning that. And also with Judo Scotland, again, we had 2 tutors that came through the course last April. It's just about finalising dates. So those dates I showed you are the first grouping, if you like, that we've definitely got, but there will be further courses added.
Thank you, Karen. Abdul's asked, as a hospital pharmacist and a judo instructor, which is a great combination, can I introduce safe falling methodology into the hospital setting? So I completely butchered that. Mike, please.
Could you just say that again? Could you just so that we're clear?
Sorry, yeah, we didn't understand.
Methodology. Methodology. I've got it.
Okay, so is that one for me? What? So as a
You
pharmacist, can you do this in hospitals? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure you could. You just need a space in a hospital to put a mat area down. I think you'd need to really think through your approach, because my assumption is that people who are in hospital have even less mobility than, you know, people out in the community who are typically the ones attending my sessions. So you might do a lot more on the ground, a lot more no-waza type exercises in terms of ukemi, and it might take you much longer to get to kind of falling from standing. Typically with the groups I'm working with, it's taking me about 10 weeks to get them to be able to fall from standing. So I think, yes, you could do it in a hospital, provided you can get access to a mat area, but just it'll take you longer to go through the progressions if the participants are less able.
Thank you, Mike. And then we've got a question from Hal, who's asked, did the study of falling consider the background of the seniors involved, as in if they had any diseases, whether they were active or not previously? So that's kind of one part of the question. And the other part of the question is, do we know whether this can be done with people living with osteoporosis? Is there any research that shows it can help osteoporosis?
Yeah, we did consider the backgrounds. We used a physical activity readiness plus questionnaire, which is a kind of physical activity screening questionnaire designed for older adults, PARQ plus it's called, if you can look for it on Google, PARQ and then the symbol plus. So we used that to just give us a bit of information about their background, but we took the view that if anyone turned up at my judo club, I would want to get them on the mat. If they just had the one leg, or if they were visually impaired or whatever, you know, as far as I'm concerned, everybody can come on my judo mat, and it's my responsibility as a coach to adapt the session to make sure that they have a great time. So that's fine. So there was a kind of health screening, but I didn't use it to prevent people coming on. I just was aware of it so that I could coach better towards their needs. Some of the participants indicated that they have osteoporosis, and that's fine as well. And they take part. There's some evidence that kind of weight-bearing exercises can support osteoporosis, and also impact can support osteoporosis. So the mere fact that they're doing breakfalls and sitting on the ground and doing ukemi, slapping the mat, then that's would according to the evidence be helpful for their osteoporosis. So absolutely yes.
And I just wanted to mention, at the International Consensus Conference, this was quite a hot topic, wasn't it, osteoporosis, when we had like a discussion around it. And I think it's linked on your website, Mike, to Vivian's program. Is that Canada? Am I right in saying Canada?
No, that's Zekkerbewegen in the Netherlands. It's on the
Netherlands.
It's linked from our Safe Falls website on Judo Space. Yeah. But you can read about a lot of Vivian's papers and her work.
Yeah. So if you're particularly interested on that, I suggest go to Mike's website and have a look at the Netherlands section, because that research went through osteoporosis and a particular study around the pressure on osteoporotic joints. So they went into great depth on that. So that's available. Thank you, Mike. And then I think the final question we have is from Noel, and it's a question around whether any courses will be held at the weekend or in the evening, as their coaches are volunteers and fully employed. And just before we answer this, Noel, I wonder, would you mind telling us whereabouts you are based, please? Because that might help us if you're in Hertfordshire, and that might be a different answer. And we've actually, oh, sorry, Ines, I did forget your question. Can we arrange activities in the USA as well? Can we go global with this? So 2 questions there, one from Noel and one from Ines.
Yeah, so well, just before that, thanks Richard, because he's given us the data on the lady that achieved the medal in the Australian Championship. So she was 80 years old, and she got a kata medal, in bronze medal in Australian National Championships. Karen can answer the one about the weekend and evening sessions.
Yeah, so the dates that I showed, they were all weekends, because actually the feedback we got from when we did the expression of interest was, as you've said, Noel, that actually predominantly weekends. Some people wanted weekdays, but predominantly weekends. So those dates that I shared were weekends, and they will be sent out. And they, at the moment, are all across England and Wales, hopefully spreading as best as we could, because we did look at the geography from the expression of interest too. So thanks to Nick for clustering those for us. But like I say, there will be more. So if something doesn't work, then we're going to keep the expression of interest open so that we can make sure that we've got as many people through those courses as possible.
And then coming back, thanks, Karen. Coming back to Ines's question about the US, yes, absolutely. I'm in contact with Kevin Asano, I think involved in the leadership of the US Judo Federation. Kevin's based in Hawaii, so they're going to start some sessions in Hawaii very soon, as I understand. But if you wanted to reach out to me separately, Ines, about facilitating that, and then we either start the sessions or we put you in contact with someone, or possibly Benoit would come down from Montreal. Depends on the location. US is a big place, as we all know. So yeah, drop me a line, in us, and we'll try and work something out.
Brilliant. Judo is finding your feet is going global, so it's just what we want to hear. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming along. It's been great to have so much engagement, and there's so much passion in the room as well. So feel free to get in touch with us. I'll share the recording, and I really hope to speak and hear to a lot of you very soon. So thank you so much, Professor Michael Callan and Karen, for your time today. It's much, much appreciated. I will stop the recording now.